This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another week and yet another round of the 2K Skip Barber World Cup. This time brought to you from the Sebring International Raceway, Florida, United States. Hello everyone, and welcome to the broadcast that we have going on here on our Sunday evening scheduling for RaceSpotTV. I am Connery Maddock, and I'm joined by the one, the only Nolan Rempel. Nolan, we're coming towards the end of the iRacing official season now, and things are starting to go to crunch time.
Crunch time is most certainly on, Connery, as drivers are throttling their way through. Looking up at our track conditions, of course, we've got about 26 degrees centigrade in the air, 33 degrees Celsius on the track. Got a bit of a calm breeze, 20 kilometers an hour, 12 miles an hour for the Americans around this beautiful 5.79 kilometer circuit with, of course, the Skip Barber Formula 2000. This is going to be a very interesting track here, Connor, today. Of course, very bumpy, very challenging, as we've already been seeing in the practice sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very tricky to get around here at the best of times, but we do have ourselves qualifying underway at this moment in time. Just to give you a little bit of a look at the drivers that are currently out there on their laps. And as always here in the 2K Skip Barber World Cup, it is one and done qualifying, so we'll have to see how these drivers are able to manage it. But the thing is, this is what they've been dealing with throughout the season, Nolan. It shouldn't be a foreign concept to them, but still, 1 foot out of line and you're having to start at the back.
And we've already seen one driver that unfortunately had that happen to them. I saw one driver spin it around and go into the wall in turn number 1. So already some laps have ended off early today. Of course, you know that one lap you really have to make it count. It can decide where you start the race. It could also equally decide quite well where you might finish as we ride on board with Anthony Catt as he takes his lap right now, just heading on through what is going to be coming up to the Cunningham corner.
Yeah, absolutely. Big old wide line being taken from Anthony Catt into that one as he follows through this sort of middle sector of the circuit here. And one of the big points they did bring up at the start of the show, Nolan, is that those bumps can be very, very tricky indeed. It's like you're being shaken to the bone here at some portions of this racetrack, but Anthony Catt seeming to deal with it well at this moment in time. We'll just get ourselves his current lap time up. He's currently on around about 1 minute and 40 seconds out there on circuit. Still a relatively long lap time here for these Skip Barber machines, but Anthony Catt, of course, use all the track limits that you want coming into that Le Mans corner. And then, of course, it's always 100% throttle. This is where it's going to be one of the main drafting zones into a big overtaking zone of the Sunset Bend. And, of course, Sunset Bend, we call that corner the corner of a million lines, and for good reason. You know, seemingly every method of going through here seemingly equally fast. But now Anthony Catt just taking just a slightly apex there, able to bring that car all the way back out. You've given a lot of room on the exit of the corner here to be able to get your lap complete, carry as much speed down the pit straight as possible. It was a 2:26.8 there for Anthony Catt. It's actually good enough to get him up into second place, and we'll actually bring up the rest of the current standings in qualifying for you now. It's Johnny Gindy with a 2:26.1 at the front of the field for now, but it looks like he is absolutely dominant there with more than half a second between himself and second place.
So Johnny Gindy currently looking to keep pole position. He does have provisional pole for now. Currently 12 laps have been set. Now check that 14. And Gindy, time getting really close. That is Simon Edwards. That is now just over a tenth away from him. Julian Alfred tried to get up there. He did not manage to make that time work either. So for now, it is Johnny Gindy. We have 4 drivers that we are still waiting on the time, but they did not manage to complete their last qualifying. Is over. It is Johnny Gindy on pole position.
Yes, it is. And, well, we can get ourselves perhaps the starting grid here for today's race. It looks like this. Johnny Gindy, pole position from Simon Edwards. That is your front row here today. Julian O'Fray and Anthony Catt will be your second row on the starting grid. And we can cycle things further down as well. We've got Alfredo Malo R, and we've got Gonzalo Calvo as well. P5, P6, P7 will go to Greg Zietz. Gustavo Conde will start in P8 here today. Anthony Witt, P9. John Ocken in P10. Carl Dronke will have to start in P11 with Edwin Valrino in P12. Neil Kemp in P13 and Haroldas Jotsuras there in P14. Francois Bouillon starts in P15 with Rob Adams in P16. Tuan Tran, John Sully, Perkles Adenopoulos and Hans Hoyer will bring things down to the bottom part of your grid here today. 20 cars here for this round of the 2K Skip Barber World Cup. And those drivers are already staking themselves to the starting grid here, Nolan. Just expectations really quickly.
Well, I'd say expectations, expect some carnage on lap number 1, as Sebring so often provides, and then expect things to definitely pick up, especially near the end of the race. Such a technical track, but yet such one that is held in high regards by so many racers here on the service, and of course IRL. And I'm pretty sure it's very important to win this race here today, as we are coming into the final races of the season.
Yes, we are. Of course, one of the final rounds here at Sebring as your drivers start to line themselves up on that starting grid. Just a couple of drivers to wait for before we can get this one green flag racing. But it looks like it's just a couple of moments to go and we can get ourselves the green flag out there in the 2K Skip Barber World Cup. And there they go, all fanning out already on the way down in towards turn 1 for the first time. Anthony Catt versus Alfredo Malo in towards turn 1. Catt is able to squeak himself ahead, but there's a little bit of a... well, Johnny Gindy, Gustavo Conde, excuse me, were the two at the front of the field. As cycling further back now, he got some bits of battling, especially for what looks to be P3, P4 sorts of area between the likes of these sorts of drivers, such as you got Gustavo Conde right in the thick of things there in that 289. But it looks like a relatively clean start up and down the field here, Nolan.
Yeah, clean start all the way through, actually. So everybody made it safe and sound through turn number 1. A little bit of close moments, but you know, that's nothing unusual to see here. The Skip Barber cars and we've already have one car going around. It is Alfredo Malo R. Backward suspension destroyed. Track is going to be half blocked up here. That is going to become a parking lot over there, and that is a big incident.
That is a big smash there down towards the hairpin. We'll have to get a replay of it up on screen for you now. Let's see exactly what has happened. We'll have a little bit of above view there. You can see the incident happen right at the front, but everyone just getting all stacked up on that inside line there. That is absolutely horrible to see that, as you see those cars stranded, struggling to get themselves going in this sort of situation. So you see Alfredo Malo Jr., who was the was the driver right at the front of that one. He is currently down on the pit lane and doesn't look to be coming out anytime soon. So big news already so far this race.
And more big news, Gonzalo Calvo. He also had his own big moment in the Collier curve. He spun the car around, tried to get it backed up onto the racetrack, right into the path of poor Hans Hoyer, who just nowhere to go, drove right through him, completely destroyed that car, backed it up a little bit here. You're going to see as Calvo just went through, lost the back end all on his own, slides into the grass, does a good job of keeping it out of the barrier, but unfortunately backs it up a bit too far to the track and just gets completely run over.
Oh, that is not a great rejoin there. for Gonzalo Calvo, straight into the path of another driver. He'll have to take that car with the tow back to pit lane, of course, but towards the end of lap number 1, it seems like it's been ages since the start of this race. That's just how long the lap times here are. As you see, John Ocken and Gustavo Conde, they'll have a bit of a side-by-side battle down in towards turn 1 here. Let's see who comes out on top. It's just going to have to be John Ockens falling behind right now, as that was actually Andy Witt working his way through for position. So it seems like those top 3 cars have really gotten away from things at the front of the field here, Nolan, and this second train is just left to scrap amongst themselves.
Well, no doubt that big roadblock on lap number 1, kind of played a part in that, because I think it was 4th or 5th place that spun out and then, completely ran into the rest of the field and checked everybody up. And this is, oh my goodness, this is going to be, it's going to be huge for, so many drivers. We got about like half the field down there on pit road as well. So many cars taken out in just the first lap of the race. Certainly has thinned the herd, to say the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get that ticker up on screen. Johnny Gindy leads this race from Simon Edwards, from Julian O'Fray. That is your leading 3 cars, but everyone from P4 back is in this particular train. Here comes John Ocken, then looking for the move on Andy Witt. He's going to have to go either way around here. There we go, side by side between these two, just stacking up everyone behind. Witt will hold on to position, and now Ocken's going to come under threat from Gustavo Conde now, as they will decide to duel on the way down to the next corner. So it seems like as soon as Ocken, starts to think about making the move over Witt at the front, he has just a bunch of angry piranhas behind him trying to work their way through.
Well, you can't blame them for being angry piranhas, just, seeing what happened over there on lap number 1. And 14 laps, despite being a Skip Barber cars, it is a decently long race, but the lap count, it can make the race seem deceptively short, as we ride on board with Gustavo Conde down there in 6th place. You can already see the current lap time down at the bottom of your screen. It's already approaching 2 minutes, so already, we're going to be near 4 or 6 minutes into this race. Just 2 laps in, coming up over onto lap 3 as well.
Yeah, and you can see the whole slipstream situation on the way down into Sunset Bend. Conde looking to have a little bit of a go down the inside here, and there we go, inside of John Ocken. Many lines can work through here. Here comes the cutback move, though, for Ocken, trying to hold on to position. There's got more battling behind, involving Dronke, Tran as well, trying to work their way through in this situation, as we'll see side by side once again in towards the first corner. Andy Witt is now coming under threat here, and in fact, he will drop the position to John Ocken down in towards turn number 1. So this second pack certainly isn't hanging around at all.
Yeah, not hanging around at all, and everybody's just kind of scrapping away for position right now, as these races so often go. Everybody tries to get those spots early on before things settle down into the rhythm. For now, as Conde, those cars, they look so loose, it almost looks like they're trying to drift them through every single corner like they do in qualifying for their outlets to get the temperature into the tires. But you don't want to get too much temperature in the tires, or you're going to find yourself spinning off and slamming into a tire barrier. But as Conde continues to try to go a little bit on the defensive against Tran right behind them. Tran, he of course started way down the order, down in 17th. He's already made up mountain spots up into 8th.
You can see we're riding on the back of John Ocken. As you can see, the whole slipstream train starting to form behind him. It's so difficult to break the draft at the front of one of these drafting trains. Every single Skip Barber driver will tell you that, unless there's some sort of outside influence like a wreck that has been able to separate the top 3 from these guys. The gap between those is at around about 7 seconds at this stage. So Gindy, O'Fray and Edwards have basically just checked out of the race as far as the rest of the field is concerned. But everyone else, it seems like P4 is going to be the best they get today, unless they're able to pull off something miraculous when it comes to those stops.
So for now, it is looking like this huge battle for P4 is going to be the one to watch for a good portion of the race. Apart from their top 3, everybody else is just kind of running all on their lonesome around the track in their own little portions. And oh, look at this. Got one car running a little bit wide. That was John Ocken that ran a little wide on the exit of that corner in the run down to Sunset Bend. And as we see, there is Gustavo Conde going to make another look down the inside of Andy Witt coming into the Sunset Bend. He's got a big run this time. He actually might try to go for 4th place as well around John Ocken. No, he's going to have to back out of that one. But Andy Witt Oh, not going to quite lose one. Chops the nose off of Tuan Tran.
And you can see Andy Witt in the process of losing yet more positions because that's Tuan Tran heading his way through. That's a slow car off the corner, though. John Ocken has really dropped a couple of positions here. A lot of speed not going his way right now as Gustave Conde is going to be the leading car in that pack from John Ocken as Tuan Tran tries to wrestle that one away from him. We'll see 3 wide in towards turn 1. That's Francois Poulion getting himself involved as well. There's still 3 wide off of turn 1 here. How are these guys going to separate their differences? Well, they do get returned to 2 wide formation as that 92 works its way through. That's the car of Poulion. So Carl Dronke, he's seen a lot of action so far this lap, and now he's solidly in the middle of that train.
Oh, I was holding my breath right there. Carl Dronke, he got forced over onto the grass, actually, and managed to hang on to that car just by the skin of his teeth, too. So that's one of those moments where you just hold your breath and hope for the best. Dronke gonna make the long way around Francois Poulion down into the hairpin corner. Down at turn 7, gonna manage to get that spot all neat and clean. Francois Poulion, though, he might be struggling a little bit because I do see a little bit of damage on the right side of that rear wing. So he might be struggling a little bit with aerodynamic grip in some of the faster corners.
Yeah, absolutely. We see, of course, Tuan Tran currently leading that one. That was Gustavo Conde going for maybe a little bit of a defensive sort of suggestion there as he starts to come under threat from the car of Carl Dronke right now. You can see this driver that's currently 3rd in line, P6 in the standings. If you're wondering why we're not focused at the front of the field right now, those gaps are looking rather large. Those guys aren't actively dueling like these guys are. So Dronke, the driver from New Jersey, trying to work his way through to the pointy end of this train. And the important point is that if you are a little bit further back in this train, Nolan, you can actually get a little bit of fuel saving down without actually sacrificing too much speed.
That is true, and that can be really crucial when you know you're running down straights like the Ullman Straight and, of course, the start-finish straight as well, along through Big Bend, too. So the fuel economy for these cars is going to become very crucial, especially when we get closer and closer to that pit stop window. Of course, drivers will need to make at least one. At least they are going to be making one stop for sure this race. Dronke up the inside though of Conde. Conde trying to fight back around the outside. Can he go for the over/under? No, we can. And it is Tuan Tran, the one's really wide. Gets 2 tires into the grass and might lose out another spot there to Carl Dronke off of the Sunset Bend.
Yeah, you can see the view from up above as that entire train still stacks up in towards turn number 1. You can see how inviting things are on entry to that corner. So, it's not entirely surprising that we see so many moves down the inside there, but it does tighten up for the exit. So you have to be so careful if you are side by side through turn 1, not to crowd the car on the outside off the circuit.
Of course, that is if the track can narrow up so much, it's so deceptively narrow too. Like even when it narrows up, it looks like it's a lot wider than it is. But the next thing you know, you're going to be driving off and doing a little bit of lawn mowing. So you do have to make sure that your move is done and complete. And if you are on the outside, sometimes might be worth a little while more to maybe tap the brakes a little on the exit, bow out of the move to ensure that you don't go flying off of the track.
Yeah, you do have to be so careful indeed. Just to give you a little bit of an update on the race lead, there he is, Julian O'Fray, currently in the race lead. You can see that leading pack of 3 cars. So it's O'Fray, it's Johnny Gindy, it's Simon Edwards in that particular order as these guys still try to work their way around. I don't think there's really all that much point in fighting for position in this leading train right now because you're currently in a very good position over the rest of the field. You have about a 10-second gap all the way back to that second train. I wouldn't do anything to compromise that right now if I was one of these 3 drivers.
I completely agree with you on that one, Connor, and I think that's exactly what these drivers are thinking as well, because they're driving, they're driving pretty darn smart right now. They understand that, we have a huge gap over the rest of the field. Why sacrifice that? Not to mention Johnny Gindy and Simon Edwards, what they can both do when they're so far back, they can actually do, like you said, a little bit of fuel saving behind Julian Alfred. So they're driving really smart here, trying to make sure that they can get the fuel, some of their fuel saving done, maybe outrun Julian Alfred when it comes to the pit window.
We can see a little bit of battling once again. That's Tuan Tran now slotting himself ahead of Carl Dronke. So it's always seemingly like there's a different leader of this train every single time we come back to look at it. Carl Dronke, though, we can have a little look on board with him as he tries to maybe trying to find a way past that driver of Tuan Tran. He didn't seem to be overly optimistic about it that time in towards turn 1. You can see how sideways Tuan Tran got through the middle of the corner there. So he still had to be careful with the slip angles a little bit here in these Skip Barber cars. They can get a little bit of a slide on, but they are still recoverable. As Tuan Tran, you can see leading this train right now, and you can also see Gustavo Conde, who's currently about 3rd in line in that train. So, you know, we haven't really seen any separation at all in this second train. They're all keeping themselves together, and that's mostly thanks to the slipstream. As we saw, at least I saw, Carl Dronke just have a little bit of a slight little look over Tuan Tran that time around, but it's just more of scare tactics rather than anything else.
He's crowded the mirrors of Tuan Tran, that's for sure. Maybe trying to force that number 21 machine into a mistake. But for now, Tran is really keeping his cool and making sure to keep Dronke behind him. Gonna try to make another look to the right, but he's still not close enough to dive it up the inside. Of course, you could try to go for a dive bomb maneuver, but I'm pretty sure, as these drivers and so many other Skippy's drivers would tell you, going for a dive bomb in these cars, you know, in some cars like a GT car or even a Miata, it might work, but in Skippy's, it can have a very different effect because, like you said, these cars, they do like to slide around a fair bit. So if you miss your brake point by so little, you could really find yourself instead going for a little bit of power sliding.
Yeah, absolutely. The man at the front of the train right now is Tuan Tran, working his way through as we're on lap number 6 of this race. Tuan Tran, though, ever since the start of this lap, he's been pretty secure in this sort of train leading position right now, as Dronke dropped back a little bit off him coming through that right-hander, but this is the run now. Coming down towards Le Mans corner, is Dronke going to go for the move? He gets bigger, he gets bigger. He does decide to go for it. Dronke down the inside, and that wasn't fought at all by Tuan Tran. So these guys seemingly working together, maybe to try and catch that leading group. But we have our first pit stop of the day, because that is going to be Johnny Guindy. He's down on the lane, but he doesn't have anyone, at least in the leading packs, following him.
Nobody in the leading group following him, and as you can see right behind him, John Ocken and Francois Bouillon down onto the lane as well. Now, the big story with that coming down is, of course, that was your race leader at the time he came down. He did actually manage to make a look around Alfred into the Sunset Bend, go for the lead, then, of course, immediately came down and pitted. He's going to be coming out right about now, so a pit stop time of 12.7, pit lane delta time about 36.8 seconds. Now the question is, where will he cycle through when the other leaders come in? That's, of course, going to be the crucial factor here. Did he try to go for an undercut? And if so, did he do it maybe a little bit too early? Because we're not even at the halfway point yet.
Yeah, and he doesn't have anyone around him right now. You can just see on that picture, just a clear track all around him. He doesn't have any drafting partner to be able to go any quicker on these outlaps. So he just has to be careful he doesn't drop back outside of that leading pack. Right now, Julian O'Fray leads this race, and you can see that Simon Edwards is going to be the driver right behind him. That is going to be a gap of about 0.4 of a second between those two. But with the pit stop window being solidly open, coming in at the end of this, that will be pretty much bang on halfway. I think this is where we'll see the rest of the field start to come in, as we've already seen half of it come.
So lap 7 through 9 seems to be the window for today here at Sebring, as Alfred continues to fend off Simon Edwards, who continues to close in the gap. It's now just 0.2 now. Gapping up to about 1/4 of a second, but still, he is definitely within striking distance. If Edwards can get a good drive coming off here of Le Mans, and in fact he has, he could very well try to make a look down into the Sunset Bend, like we saw Mr. Johnny Guindy try to do, but it will be Julian Alfred to go on the defensive, but comes back up to chop off Simon Edwards. There will not be a look for the lead this time around.
Yeah, you can see them heading their way through Sunset Bend right now. Does anyone decide to dive onto the lane? That is going to be no out of the leading pair. So these guys will continue around at least one extra lap here. and we can get ourselves a look back to that second train as well, as we do see a couple of cars start to think about coming in. There goes Tuan Tran, Gustavo Conde. That was very close coming into the pit lane there. Andy Witt, Rob Adams also deciding to head their way in right about now. So those cars looking for their pit stalls, looking to get themselves stopped relatively comfortably, because the last thing you want to do here is miss your pit box and have to back it up.
Every tenth of a second matters, and if you need to back it up, that could cost you a good second. But, you know, 1 second, that's all it takes for you to lose the draft of that lead field. It looked like everybody managed to get in quite comfortably. Cars are now starting to get off and away. Gustavo Conde, he's going to be the one to lead this little 4-car group off of pit road. Decently big gaps, though, from all the different drivers that came down in the pit lane about nose to tail.
Yeah, you know, you sometimes see the variations in pit stop time. Tuan Tran actually had a relatively long stop, which is why he has not filed out in the sort of front couple of positions of this train. He had a 14.2 second stop, whereas the rest of the drivers in that group are around about 12.5 seconds. So that was a little bit longer than perhaps Tran would have wanted in that situation. But the silver lining to the cloud, shall we say, is that he's still going to be in the contention for at least P4 here once this pit stop cycle files through, because we're still yet to see Carl Dronke head his way down into the pit lane. So that is basically the only driver from that second train that has not pitted just yet.
He did stay out. I was going to mention, I did notice that he did stay out. That might come back to bite him, though, because like we saw with Julian, he does not have any drafting help. It is clear track ahead of him. So the other cars, they could use that draft to close it on in and, you know, pick up a few extra tenths when he eventually comes down to make his stop as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're still waiting for O'Fray and Simon Edwards to come down in. You can see this is the battle for P1 right now. Exactly a third of a second between them. But do Simon Edwards, do Julian O'Fray decide to head their way down in this time around? It looks like they both do at the exact same time. So they do decide to hit the pit lane, and the big question is now where is that man, Johnny Gindy? Well, he's currently trying to get himself past not Perkles, Antonopoulos, but it's a bit of lap traffic that's starting to get itself involved here. So we have to see where he comes out in relation to Julian O'Fray and Simon Edwards, who are currently still down in the pit lane. They are just getting their stops done right now. They're about halfway through as we see Johnny Gindy coming down the pit straight now. Simon Edwards and Julian O'Fray yet to make their way out, and now they decide to do so. Here comes Johnny Gindy. He'll be able to get Edwards done, that is for sure, but is he able to get O'Fray done? They'll get side by side then. Coming out of the pit lane, that's O'Fray does end up dropping position, so Gindy, despite coming down earlier than everyone else, he still holds the race lead.
Might have picked up some time on those cooler tires, managed to pick up the extra time that he needed down on the track. So, Johnny Gindy now up into the lead, but not by much. He still has Julian O'Fray definitely within his draft, but I think it's safe to say that Simon Edwards, unfortunately, his stop took longer than he wanted to, because he is definitely outside of this lead draft. His fight for the win here today might be over.
Yeah, it might be. As you can see that he is currently, you can see on his pit stop time, it was 14 seconds stopped on the lane, whereas most drivers' average would be about 12.5 seconds. So that is going to be 1.5 seconds dropped on the pit lane alone for Simon Edwards, and it's basically made up a large chunk of the 3.2 second gap he has to the race leaders right now. But that piece of lap traffic might actually help him in that situation. That car third in line is not for position here as far as these drivers are concerned, but he might be able to bridge the gap, and bring Simon Edwards back into it.
Very fair point. So, Harold Joe Taldas, he might be able to make something work for Simon Edwards here, assuming that the 45 machine can manage to stay within the draft and help Simon Edwards pick his way back up through to the lead field. Of course, we still have 5 laps to go when we hit the line, and in these cars, that's still a very long time, so Simon Edwards definitely has the time to make it up, but he's going to need to really put the foot down and go all out from here to the end to make it happen.
I kind of want to say Carl Dronke you know, despite being the car that stayed out for the longest time in that second pack, he has come down on towards the lane, and he's come out in that 4th place, right at the front of that train. So it seems like pitting later seems to be better here for a lot of the drivers up and down the field. So you can see that currently 5-car train working its way through towards Sunset Bend. We can see Gustavo Conde is looking to try and work his way past, and it looks like he will get past relatively easily. So using that slipstream to his advantage to slot through to the race lead. Well, not the race lead, but the train lead in that P4 spot.
Dronke might lose another one here as well to Tuan Tran, who got a good drive underneath through Sunset Bend as well. But Dronke is in the perfect defensive position for turn number 1. The question is he going to be able to clear him? He will. So Tuan Tran has to give up his pursuit of the top 5 for now. But Dronke, like you said, came down later, came out at the head of the train. Might have been trying to maybe burn off a little bit of extra fuel, so that way you fill up the car about the same amount of the distance, but you know, you don't put nearly as much into it, so the overall fuel load is lighter, making your car lighter and therefore faster. So that could be the strategy that he was going on, and it certainly seemed to pay off for him.
Yeah, it does. As we look back to the race lead, then we're going to go on board with Julian O'Fray as he tries to chase down that race leader of Johnny Guindy. He had a little bit of a moment just off the pictures, just dropping around about 2 or 3 tenths of a second, but you know, that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things in the skip bar, because with the draft being as aggressive as it is, and he's able to keep himself in close contention here. It's 4 seconds back to Simon Edwards right now, so things are not looking likely for him to be able to really affect things at the end of the day, unless these guys at the very front slow each other down a ton.
So for now, this little field is the top 2 are going to kind of stay where they are at for now. Maybe they'll see if they can try to work their way through, and so far just finish it all up in one piece. I'm pretty sure this fight will start to pick up as well as the race goes on, and we get closer and closer to the end of this race as we go on with a couple of static shots showing your top 2. And you can see that lap car started to drop back, and there's Simon Edwards going through shot now as well. So Simon Edwards, what do you think of that? Do you think he'll still be able to make his way up there? Because with every passing second, his chances are growing slimmer.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. You know, it's he needs to have that piece of lap traffic in the right place at the right time, basically equidistant between himself and those race leaders. But we can see a big look there from a Julian O'Fray into Sunset Bend. He's taking the slightly wider line, and he can make it very close off the exit of the corner here. Is it going to be side by side down the pit straight? It is going to be side by side down the pit straight. Julian O'Fray looking to make his way around the long way around into turn 1, but Guindy has just been able to keep himself ahead in that situation. He's able to return back to the normal racing line, but that might just be the first statement from O'Fray as Guindy pushes a little bit wide coming through the exit of turn 1, but he's safe. He had enough of a buffer.
So Guindy having a little bit of a moment for himself. Meanwhile, the fight is back on for P4. Gustavo Conde just pushed himself up into P4 down through turn 1. Tuan Tran ran a little bit wide. They almost went 3 wide coming onto the pit straight as well. That's a fight that I've been keeping in a little look on, as this is still this little train here. It's definitely closed back in from the pit stop as we take another look at what has just happened.
Yeah, I was just trying to catch the little bit of a moment, but it seems to have gotten himself ahead at this stage. But yeah, it was a big old snake there coming down the pit straight. He went himself down the inside there of Tuan Tran. Absolutely no problems trying to get that pass complete. One of the more obvious places to do so, but we'll get ourselves back to the live pictures then, because we are on lap number 11 of 14 here. Johnny Guindy still leads this race, and we've also got Julian O'Fray in that second spot. We can pull up the top 8 up on screen for you now. Johnny Guindy, O'Fray, then it's going to be Simon Edwards in that third place, sort of no man's land spot, but this is where the battle is at for P4. Gustavo Conde still holding on, but it's Tuan Tran now down the inside to be able to take that position away, and it seems like it's going to be all to play for here for this P4 spot.
Ah, that was a very decisive maneuver down at the tower. That's not a traditional passing zone that we really see. So the fact that Tuan Tran saw the opening and went for it, it shows that he really wants to get that spot as much as he can. As Now he's the one that's going to be leading the train, though, but he will be, of course, the biggest driver under threat in the run down the Ulman Straight. Will Gustavo Conde be able to close in enough to make that look into the Sunset Bend?
This will probably be our best view of it. Gustavo Conde now looking to try and get himself up into P4. Of course, we are keeping a slight eye on the battle for the race lead in just in case anything changes, but Chuan Tran this time won't come under threat coming down into Sunset Bend. You can see everyone actually taking a relatively similar line coming through there. Chuan Tran, good exit as well, able to secure himself ahead of the train, but he still needs to fend off the draft coming in towards turn number 1. You can see Conde still starting to get ever closer, just creeping his way in, but he's not going to be within range of a big old move down the inside just yet. He might just be sizing up his competition at this stage.
Sometimes you need to set it up as, Chuan Tran running a little bit wide on the exit, but sometimes that's what you need to do. You just need to kind of size it up and set your passes up. That's sometimes what you need to do, especially in slower cars like these, where it can sometimes be so difficult to find momentum. You really have to try to, think of where do you want to make the pass, then set yourself up so you can be in the prime position to strike when that time comes around. And I think that's exactly what you said, what Gustavo Conde is doing right now. So still being very, very patient, but time is running out. About 2.5 laps left in this race.
Yeah, so time is going to be of the essence. We also have Karl Dronke third in line in that particular pack as well. So he certainly looks to be picking up the pieces just in case things go awry here right at the front of the train. I'm looking to see the gap in P1, P2 right now. That currently stands at around about 0.2 of a second between these guys. So Guindy and O'Fray, they're basically going to have a 2-horse race here right at the front of the field. Simon Edwards hasn't been able to make up the gap that he's had after that pit stops. It stands at about 5 seconds right now, but for the race lead, it's just going to be between these two, mano a mano.
And Johnny Guindy, he has got to be looking really nervous right about now, because Julian Alfray, this entire lap, he's been making look after look, going side by side, trying to get every single corner. He's going to get blocked way to the apron, though. Going to try to make the look around the outside, coming to Sunset Bend. He's not going to be able to clear him, though. Guindy's still there, who dives it up the inside. Can Alfray try to go for the over and under? He's going to make the attempt on the exit. Will he be able to get that done? It looks like he just might. Runs Guindy a little wide down the pit straight once again.
Yep, here we go. Absolutely neck and neck for the race lead. On to lap 13 of 14. O'Fray scored ahead that time around, but Guindy still has that inside line, still able to capitalize and head his way through. But here comes the up and under then for Julian O'Fray. He needs to complete it in towards turn number 3 here. You can see how close he gets to Guindy's car on the outside, but Guindy somehow still able to hold on despite all of this pressure being thrown at him by the number 33.
This is getting really good. This is shaping up to become a very good battle for the win indeed, as Guindy somehow managing to hang on. 0.3 left. He is going big on defensive now in the run down towards the hairpin. Alfray has to stay in line for now. He's going to have to be a little bit more patient. Gets on the brakes pretty late, though, in comparison to Guindy. So Alfray still trying to find every chance to make his way through. I can guarantee you, if he sees Guindy make even the slightest of mistakes, he is definitely going to force that one into a bigger one if he can.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see he's just having looks. Every single door that Guindy is leaving open, O'Fray is sticking his car where he could be very much threatening and looking to take this race win right at the end of things. But heading their way through the middle sector is probably one of the toughest portions of the track here to make an overtake. So O'Fray just has to sit there and bide his time and hope to make a move perhaps coming towards the start of that final lap. Maybe through Sunset Bend he can get something done, but getting a move done that early will mean he's under threat for the entirety of that final lap. So we'll have to see what happens here.
This is going to get very good. I'm starting to bite my nails here as Guindy tries to throttle his way through. Can he get the better drive out from O'Fray? O'Fray cuts the corner quite a bit, manages to get over the rumble strips, but doesn't appear to be affecting him at all. Once again, blocks him right down to the wall, and then he's going to look to the outside to try to make it through again. We've seen passes around the outside in the Sunset Bend before, even in cars like GT cars, so it certainly would not be any surprise to see it in the skippies. He's going to try to look for the over and under, though. Will it work for him this time?
Look at it. Look at the amount of mid-corner speed he's able to carry through there, but there's going to be no space there on the outside to be able to make a move work. So on to the final lap then. White flag is out there on circuit, and it's going to be one lap to decide who comes away with the race win here at Sebring. You can see that currently Johnny Gindy still leads through turns 1, but he loses a bit of speed on the exit there. Julian O'Fray now looks to make the move down the inside at turn 3. Just a little bit of a slide through there, but look at this. Absolutely brilliant stuff coming through the end of that first sector. Julian O'Fray, he's so desperate trying to get himself ahead, but he has to fall behind here. Back into the slipstream he goes in towards and through Big Bend, but another big overtaking opportunity is coming up. It's down into the hairpin. He has to go the long way around again, but if he's able to keep himself at least side by side, he might have a chance. Looking for the up and under still. Gindy's holding so strong. The defense has been insurmountable, but he needs to hold on for another 2/3 of a lap.
My God, this is good stuff. O'Fray trying to make another look now down. This is going to be coming down here into the Cunningham corner. He's going to try to make the look. They almost touched this time. He tries to go for the over-under again, but Gindy still manages to hang on to it. O'Fray, he is all over the back of him, harassing his mirrors now, trying to push through whatever he gets. He's going to try to make the look at the tower turn. The back end slides out, manages to hang on to that one down the Flying Fortress straight for the final time today.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be the duel. 2.5 of a second between these two drivers right now. Here comes O'Fray then. Big move down towards the inside, side by side with Johnny Gindy just briefly, but he still just simply can't find a way through. Big old wide line coming through Le Mans corner. Try to carry all the speed possible coming down the back straight here. Here we go. He's going to go for the move then in towards Sunset Bend. You can see now he's absolutely level with him on the way down into that very final braking zone of the lap. But does Julian O'Fray come away with it? Gindy keeps himself ahead for now, heading their way through that corner. There's the slide though. O'Fray, he's not able to hold it. He's so slow off the corner. I think he'll be secure in P2, but the man that's secure in P1, checkered flag out. Johnny Gindy wins this 2K Skip Barber race from Sebring.
That is about as good of a finish as you could possibly hope for, but Julian O'Fray, heartbreak going for the win around the final corner. Somehow managed to hang on to that car. Let me tell you what, it is not easy to save these cars, so he managed to pull that one off perfectly. Still got battles coming down. It's a drag race down for 4th place. It was Gustavo Conde to hold on to that one. 5th place in this race was Tuan Tron, who tried to make the lookout in the last second. That didn't work out for him either. But what happened to our battle for 4th place? Because they're just nowhere to be found.
Well, it looks like it was Gustavo Conde coming out on top of that one. As you can see them heading their way across the line on the replay here. But man, what a crazy, crazy race we had right at the front of the field. Brilliant stuff between both Johnny Gindy and Julian O'Fray. And what a finish it was. Gindy with the defensive moves, just absolutely incredible indeed. These are your official race results, though, from Sebring. Johnny Gindy wins by 2.8 seconds, but that is not representative at all of what happens here today. But brilliant stuff at the front of the field. O'Fray, a big old slide through Sunset Bend, not able to hold it, not able to challenge Gindy right at the end, despite all of his best efforts. Simon Edwards kept himself in contention before the first set of stops in that 3-car train at the front of the field, but at the end of the day, a poor stop means that he does drop back about 2 more seconds off your leading pair, as Gustavo Conde will come home in that P4 spot. Tuan Tran will finish in 5th place here today. John Ocken and Rob Adams, P6 and P7. Pickless Adenopoulos, P8, with Andy Witt in P9. Francois Bouillon will secure himself position inside of that top 10. And of course, you get our rundown to P20. Go ahead, Noam.
It is Edwin Valliard that's going to finish us off in Greg Seats in P number 11. Edwin Valerino down in place. Hans Hilwer is going to be in 13th after making up 7 spots from the start of this race. Neil Kemp finishes 14th. Anthony Catt drops a fair way down. Unfortunately, another 11 spots. Has to settle for 15th. Carl Dronke is down 5 and is 16th. Harold Jawhatas is he actually only finished about 43 seconds off the leader, but he was a good lap down, so he's going to finish it off in 17th. And now, of course, we're getting into the drivers that did not finish the race. Alfredo Malo R in 18th, Gonzalo Calvo in 19th, with John Sully rounding off your 20-car field down in last place.
Well, there we go. That is going to be it in terms of the racing here today, but join us in just a couple of moments because we have the post-race show, and more important, we do have an interview with Johnny Ginty coming up just after this, so don't go away. Hello everyone and welcome back to this 2K Skip Barber World Cup, and what a race we have had here at the Sebring International Raceway. At the very end, it was Johnny Ginty coming away with the race win, as he so often does in this series, but it wasn't without challenge. Julian O'Fray hot on his heels for those final couple of laps, but Ginty was able to hold on to come away with the race win here today. Just a brilliant defensive performance at the front of the field there, Nolan.
Absolutely. It was seriously exciting stuff, especially in the final few laps. You know, as these races often go, things kind of settle down around the middle of the race, and then right at the end, everything kicks up into high gear. And it was either, let's face it, was either going to be one of them going around, or it was going to be a photo finish. And unfortunately, this time it was Julian Alfred that ended up taking a huge slide through the final corner in Sunset Bend.
Yeah, it was a last-ditch attempt, but maybe just slightly overdid it here in this situation. But since this is a post-race show, it wouldn't be complete without driver interviews, and we do have the race winner, Johnny Ginty, coming into the commentary booth. And Nolan, you're standing by with him.
Thank you, Connery, and welcome, Johnny Ginty. Once again, we are seeing you here in Victory Lane, and oh boy, what an intense battle that was coming through to the final laps of the race. Congratulations on the victory.
Or maybe not, as he's having a couple of mic issues. So
Can
hopefully,
you hear me now?
there we go. Continue.
There we go.
Yeah, push to talk. But yeah, it was a pretty fun battle with Julian. I wasn't sure if I would be able to leave him behind with all the draft that you get at this track. But I mean, as long as you know which bits to defend, and as long as you also don't make mistakes, you can make it work. Even for, I think it was like 7 or 8 laps that Julian was putting pressure on me.
So coming down, of course, through to Sebring, such a draft-heavy track, and with the whole pit stop cycle, that, of course, would be crucial here today. So kind of looking back a little bit further to the pit stop window, of course, it was crucial that you got through to the entire stop. How did you kind of play through the strategy there? Did you manage to, you think you managed to play that off perfectly and that helped you kind of figure out your win today?
I mean, I was expecting, I mean, the whole point of pitting early was to get clean laps without them having my draft and without them saving fuel. So I tried to save as much fuel as I could for like 3 or 4 laps before pitting. And I decided to pit just 2 laps before them to get clean air because I knew I had better pace than them. But in the end, I mean, the strategy worked out perfectly, I think. Maybe I slowed the car down a little bit too much on pit entry. But apart from that, it wasn't too bad. And the out lap and the lap after that was pretty good. So I was surprised to see Julian just behind me as after lap 8.
And of course we saw him putting pressure on you is a bit of an understatement. Of course, he was trying to look around to find a way through at every given opportunity. It's got to be difficult to try to, kind of keep a calm head and not to make an error when, you're under so much pressure. As a racer, how do you manage to just keep your calm so much, especially when you're under, so much pressure from a fellow racer?
I mean, in many ways, believe it or not, it sort of helps that he was putting the pressure on for so many laps, because if you can defend from him on lap 9, you're going to be able to defend from him on lap 14 if you do things correctly. Of course, everyone will push a little bit harder trying to overtake on the last lap, but it sort of gives you confidence as you go along the race and you defend successfully lap after lap.
And before we let you go and celebrate your victory today, do you have anybody that you would like to shout out? Who gets it done for that number 18 machine?
I'd like to thank DriveX Esports, obviously, our sponsors, Scalpers, Burner, Hucksters, and Hux, and Goldcar. And obviously Philippe for organizing the series, everyone who shows up for the races. There's a bit of news that the series might not go on for next season that I was reading on. I don't really know the details, but it'd be super, super sad to see it go. So hopefully either organizers can change their minds or someone else, maybe even me, I don't know, could take the reins and keep this going.
We'll have to hope for the best on that front. Ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Gendy, your race winner after an extremely intense and exciting finish here today at Sebring.
Well, there we go. Johnny Gendy holding on, and perhaps the definition of holding on to the race-winning spot, but became desensitized to the pressure if that interview is anything to go by. But still, a win is a win right at the end of the day. What a brilliant race we've had here at Sebring in the 2K Skip Barber World Cup. I've been Connie Maddock, and I have been joined by Nolan Rempel here for this one. Join us the same time, same place next week for more 2K Skip Barber World Cup action. Goodbye.